What is up, everybody? It's HomiesOfMars back in the day, and I have another comparison guide, and you're probably thinking, wow, this is two comparison guides in a row, and not only that, they're both class comparison guides. And the reason why I'm doing this again is because whether you guys realized it or not, I felt like my last comparison guide was kind of bland, and it just kind of had to do with the overall time I had to make it. I pretty much crunched that out at the last minute. And I said, I should have done that. So I'm going to redeem myself, hopefully, by creating the better way to create a class guide. And this class guide is going to be more in depth. It's going to be longer. And I actually have this list right here that's going to pop up on the screen. And you'll basically see that I have a small list of things that I'm going to go through before I am done with the class guide. So as you can see, number one is going to be stat maxes. Just what do the stat max at on each class. And then you have the general damage difference. And what that means is basically what class has higher DPS. It's not going to be super specific, but you're just going to know what has the higher DPS over the other. I mean, you don't really have to know specifically, do you? I mean, maybe I might throw in some numbers. You might just have to watch the screen for that. And then you have rushing ability, which is, obviously how good is each class rush. And then you have the ability differences, like the actual ability, like the cloak or the shuriken or all that, the shield and all that. How different are they each ability? And then you have the eventing ability. How well can this class event? Like doing skull shrines and all that. And then you have GLand farming ability, so how well does this class farm GLands? And then you also have dungeon farming ability, tombing ability. So basically, those are two different things. I mean, I think dungeon farming ability is like, going to any dungeon that drops stat maxes. Of course, Sprite World is easy for everything, but I'm talking about like abbeys. I'm talking about, snake pits, even though those aren't really that hard. But just how well can that class handle in those situations? And then the last thing would be my overall opinion. So, without further ado, we're going to be talking about the Assassin and the Rogue today. And let's go ahead and start off with the Rogue. Alright, so the Rogue is the god of rushing. I mean, it rushes better than any other class in the game. And it's pretty much, your go-to class for rushing anything. I mean, obviously it has a cloak, so that's just the way it is. The Assassin, on the other hand, is the best feature about it, obviously, is the fact that it throws poison. It's an area of effect damage, and it doesn't actually listen to armor. It ignores defense on the enemy, so it just keeps damaging, and it does until it does a certain amount of damage. For an example, the tier 6 poison does 900 damage over a certain amount of time, so it's considered overpowered in the WC. So the first thing we're going to be talking about these two classes are their stat maxes. The Rogue, on one hand, has a 720 HP max, which is normal, usually, and then 252 mana max, which is normal for pretty much any class, and then 50 attack, 25 defense, 75 speed and dexterity, 40 vitality, and 50 wisdom. So you can tell the low stats are, your attack. That's 50 attack is pretty standard, and it's not really anything special. But when we look at the Assassin, same HP, 720, same mana, which is 252, and then it has 60 attack, so 10 more attack than the Rogue, has 25 defense, then 75 speed and dexterity, just like the Rogue, and then 40 vitality, but 60 wisdom, so more wisdom, more attack than the Rogue, but everything else is the same. Now we're going to talk about the rushing ability. So obviously, nothing can beat the Rogue in rushing. I mean, it just automatically loses to the Rogue. I mean, nothing else can beat the Rogue, in my opinion. But the thing about the Assassin is when you think about it, okay, let's say you're rushing a WC. That rushing a WC on an Assassin is the best thing to do. I mean, an Assassin owns the WC. I mean, even though a Rogue can rush better, but when you take an Assassin to the WC, it's just like, okay, hey, look, it doesn't matter how many people are there. If you get there, okay, you're gonna be there with the Rogues. Okay, let's say the Assassins and the Rogue make it first to Orcs 2. And what the Assassin can do is he can just sit back and throw his poison, but the Rogue actually has to go in with his cloak, which is going to be very, very hard with all the people around you, and you can actually get yourself hurt pretty easily. Let's talk about the ability differences. Now, the Assassin has the poison, and then the Rogue has the cloak, okay? The poison is a damaging ability, obviously. I love the poison for, you can do so many things with it. You can event with it, you can just sit back and throw things. But with the cloak, you can do the same thing, but the problem is you actually have to go in and get close to the enemy, and if somebody walks up behind you, you're unfortunately either dead or you have the Nexus. Most of the time it's dead. That is why the Cloak has one fault, in my opinion, and if you're not alone with the Rogue, then you're going to have to deal with the people around you. You have to make sure you know where you're going. But with the Assassin, he can just sit back, it doesn't matter how many people are there, just throw his poison, and he gets his damage either way. Now, yes, with the Rogue, the Cloak gives you a higher ability or chance of getting more damage than the Assassin and his poison. But when you chuck off a couple poisons with the Assassin that has, max wisdom and max mana, then you're going to be fine when it comes to soulbound damage. Next thing is going to be eventing ability. Both of these classes really can event very easily. I mean, with the Assassin, it's a lot easier to pull off the call out from orcs because it's just the way the poison works. It damages like over time, and it's really short, so it keeps damaging until it gets to its certain amount of damage it's supposed to hit. And it's just easy. If you have the poison on him when he dies, chances are you're going to get the call out, just the way it works. The Rogue can event very easily too. I mean, he just cloaks in, does damage, and walks out. Cloaks in again, does damage, walks out. The problem with that is you have to be alone usually. I mean, you don't have to be alone, but you make sure people aren't behind you. That's always the problem, is the fact that people can be behind you. But if you're alone, venting is a piece of cake with a Rogue. But the thing with the Assassin is he doesn't have to be alone. He can just throw his poisons. But you always got to think that the poison takes more time to do damage. So poisons aren't really great with a massive amount of people, especially when you have a couple knights running up there and a warrior running up on a cube god and you only have one poison thrown off on it. You may not get your soulbound in time. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is GLand farming. The Rogue, it's really not GLand friendly. I mean, you can cloak in and kind of do some stuff. I mean, you can run through GLands easily, but actually trying to farm with the Rogue and GLands isn't that fun. The Assassin is a little bit better at it. If you get a clump of gods, you can throw your poison on it. The Assassin is definitely better for GLand farming, in my opinion. But I don't like GLand farming on these two classes just because I picture these classes more as a dungeon class, and I'd usually stay away from GLand farming. Next thing is dungeon farming ability. Whenever it comes to sprite worlds, it's really easy. I mean, any class can do it. But when you take a Rogue, he can cloak in. If you have the Planewalker, by the way, he can cloak in a lot faster. You can go teleport over the blocks and the spaces and the sprite worlds. And usually you can end up in a lot easier with time with the Rogue. I mean, you can get to Lyman a lot faster most of the time if you know how to use the Planewalker. But that's about it. I mean, the Rogue can be faster, but it's easy. Dex worlds. The next thing is Abbeys. If you have a pet, the Abbey with a Rogue can be extremely easy. A pet that's high max in mana healing ability. And it's really risky, though. When you think about either Assassin or the Rogue, they're very squishy, and the Abyss can dish out a lot of damage. So you have to make sure you know what you're doing when you're doing these things like Abbeys. And, of course, the same thing with the Undead Lair. Okay, the UDL, they don't do as much damage as the Abbeys do, but you got to watch out for the traps on the floor. But, of course, it's always going to be easier, going through these with a Rogue because you can cloak in and you can get to the enemies a lot faster. But they both usually end up in the same place where the Rogue or the Assassin can usually both get loot from either or. But the problem with the Assassin is you're probably not going to be rushing as fast because you don't have a cloak, and it's better to be with maybe one or two more people, maybe even somebody that can rush for you in the long run for that. I personally wouldn't solo dungeons with an Assassin unless it's like a WC or Oryx. I usually can't do an Abbey by myself with an Assassin. It takes too long. The last thing before my opinion is going to be tombing ability. Alright, so tombs. I mean, it's the most interesting place, in my opinion, in the game. I mean, it's extremely hard. It gets really easy if you know what you're doing. But at the very beginning, tombing can be a really big challenge. It takes a while to learn how to do it properly. When you're using an Assassin in a tomb, just do not think about rushing at all. I mean, I've rushed a couple times with an Assassin, and it is a nightmare, okay? The only classes that, in my opinion, you should even attempting to rush a tomb is either, having your Rogue, a Knight can do it, a Warrior can do it, and a Pally can kind of do it. But, of course, the Rogue has the rushing ability down so easy. He can rush those Sarks, and you can get in there with your poison. Doing the Sarks with the Assassin is kind of interesting because you kind of awaken all the priests if you throw your poison. And then also doing, best nut and geb with the assassin is interesting if you're trying to throw your poison while they're circling. I only like using the assassin in the tomb so I can do rages super easily. You can just sit back and throw the poison at the enemy raging, especially when it's geb. You usually want an assassin there, or a rogue can do rages too. I mean, both of these classes can tomb very well in my opinion. I mean, one thing that the rogue has over the assassin is the fact that he can cloak and rush a lot easier. But when it comes to the bosses, both of these classes can do a great amount of damage. I mean, especially the assassin with his 10 attack boost over the rogue. But then when it comes to rages, it's a lot easier to do a rage on an assassin because it might take a little bit longer, but you can sit back and feel more safe than with the rogue that usually has to get up there and kind of dodge some stuff while he's cloaked. And now, the final thing with my opinion over both of these classes. Both of these classes are a great class. When I was a noob, I loved the Assassin so much. I mean, it's the first class that I ever 8-8'd, and I love the Assassin still to this day. I mean, he does WCs easily, but then you also got to think about he can't really do GLands, and farming dungeons isn't going to be easy on your own. But he can do events real easily, so he's a great eventing class. WCs are great. I mean, if you need some tops, bring an Assassin. He'll usually get tops, every once in a while. I get more tops with my Assassin most of the time just because it's easier. It has no effort at all. Just press the space bar. And then with the Rogue is the most interesting class in my opinion. I just love the Rogue so much. I mean, most people have two Rogues because the Rogue does die often, though. You got to remember that, guys. The Rogue dies more often than most classes, usually. I haven't lost my 8-8 Rogue yet, but I'm sure he's going to die one day. And I'll just be prepared. I'll make another Rogue because Rogues are really fun. They're just one thing in the game that are really iconic in my opinion. It's just rushing, cloaking. Cloaking is just so fun. I mean, if you don't have a Rogue, you should make one as soon as you possibly can. But I think, in my opinion, that Assassins are going to be a little bit easier to max as a noob. I mean, you can sit back and throw your poisons and usually still end up with some soulbound loot. And the Rogue is going to take a little bit more skill in the game because you got to cloak and make sure you're not cloaking in front of people. That is also a big problem that usually a lot of people run into. It's like, oh man, I just died because I was standing in front of somebody on accident. Also, you got to make sure you use your Cloak of the Planewalker if you have one smartly. You got to be smart with it because you don't want to cloak on top of an enemy. I've done that sometimes. I accidentally use my Planewalker and I cloak on top of an enemy when I thought I had my Ghostly on. So you got to make sure you're using the right cloak too. Just remember that, guys. It can get you killed. Again, final conclusion. These classes are both great, and what I've said in the video, you should take it just with a grain of salt or completely. If you haven't had any of these classes yet, I'd suggest starting out with the Assassin. The Assassin is a good place to start, then maybe moving on to the Rogue. And of course, the Trickster you can throw in there, but this is more of just a comparison guide between these two classes. I'd say the Rogue wins if he's soloing. I mean, obviously the Rogue wins on rushing. But the Assassin wins on just overall ease of use. I mean, you can just sit back, like I said. But again, I've played on the Assassin a little bit more than the Rogue has, but I enjoy the Rogue still just as much. So it's really a personal feeling here. If maybe you experience more lag on your computer. If you do experience more lag, I suggest going with the Assassin because the Rogue really takes some, it takes a nice, clean running game because you got to pay attention to all the bullets coming to you. It's going to be a whole lot harder using a Rogue when you're rushing in a laggy situation. It's going to be a lot easier using the Assassin because the Assassin doesn't rush as much. He more kind of sits back and throws his poison. And the only time you really see an Assassin rushing is when he's in a WC. I usually never see an Assassin rushing anything else. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this comparison guide. I hope it was more in-depth for you. I don't believe I messed up on anything because I try to keep sure that my information is the same. I didn't mess up in the last video where I think I said stunning was 3.5 seconds, and it really wasn't. It was really 3. I think I was thinking about quivers or something. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this comparison guide. Tell me what you think. Do you like the new setup? Do you hate it? Anyways, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Guys, I keep saying guys. Bye. See you later.